Okay, we'll see if this stops recording. Because as always, I'm low on storage on my phone. Which, in case you haven't heard me already bitch about before, I think is a complete fucking scam. I think these phones, after 2 years, quote unquote, fill up so that I have to go and buy another one. There's no fucking way I have 60 gigabytes worth of shit on this phone. Anyway, I just finished playing Metroid Other M. Okay. And for all the nerds out there listening, you're probably like, dude, game freaking sucks, bro. If you're one of those people, maybe I'll... No, I probably won't change your mind, because this isn't going to be that good of a review. But... Okay, so this game came out after Metroid Prime 3, I'm pretty sure. And people had pretty big expectations, and apparently from what I remember, excuse me, and from like a lot of the videos I've seen, I don't know, it seems like people were kind of disappointed by this because it wasn't like a Metroid Prime game. So that's where we'll start. It's not really a Metroid Prime game. It's not first person. You know, it's not like fucking 30 hours long. Okay. Anyway, so it's not a Metroid Prime game. It's like its own thing. But, I don't know. It's basically the same shit, in my opinion. So, fuck. I don't even know where to fucking begin with this game. It's third person. It's sort of like a platformer type thing. It looks like a lot of the new Metroid shit that's coming out, like Metroid Dread or whatever the fuck, and the re-releases or whatever the fuck they're doing these days on the handheld shit and on the Switch. Basically anything that isn't Metroid Prime is sort of like in this vein. But, and I don't know if you can do this in the other games, this still has the first person option where you can look around, and actually, you have to use it for the most part. Wow, I'm doing such a bad job starting this one off. I haven't done this in a while. Yeah, God, I really don't know how to start the game. Basically, it is sort of like a super linear game, in a lot of ways. The story is very much like told to you. You know in Metroid Prime you're going through these worlds and there's no other characters. That's the beauty of those games, is that you are completely alone in those worlds. And then there's enemies. So those three are known for being pretty heavy as far as like the atmosphere goes and that kind of thing. Because you're by yourself, everything is like diegetic, we'll say, you know. There's no interference. There's no narrative, this or that. This one is like completely different in that regard. This one, from the outset, is like, we're going to tell you a story. There's like a cast. There's actors. You know, the cutscenes probably take up like an hour or so of the gameplay. Maybe longer than that, but like really polished, super detailed cutscenes that are actually pretty cool if you give a fuck about the story, which I don't particularly, but... it's going for something that's like a little bit more pulpy, this game, which is fun. So that's sort of how it begins. You have this they give you the whole fucking spiel, distress signal on some abandoned like frigate in the middle of space or some bullshit. Samus links back up with the boys, and under the command of Adam, this sort of... they make it seem like it's this father figure of hers, but they're also kind of young, so you get this idea that maybe there's a little bit of a love interest there or some shit. Which I remember watching a review, never mind, I'm not going to get into the other people's opinions of this fucking game. They land on a ship, the thing starts, pretty exciting, and from basically the beginning of the game on, you have like... most of the capabilities that you need. Like, you don't, from minute one, you're already like a professional at the game. And that's pretty cool. In other ones, they start you off with all your fucking gear and then they strip it away. And then you have to incrementally, re-unlock it and bullshit like that. This game, you really don't have to do that. I mean, yes, technically you do. Technically, everything is given to you piece by piece, but there's so little backtracking in this game that it's like you don't really... I don't know. When I played the other three and I didn't have one of the fucking items, a lot of times it was an encumbrance. You know, I had to fucking... I would go out of my way, like 30 minutes out of my fucking way to discover something, to try to make some progress, only to learn that there is like this wall of having not unlocked this other thing that was probably 45 minutes away in the other direction, you know. There's none of that. This game's kinetic, it's fast-paced, and it's about having... It's just fun. It's about having fun, you know. So that's what I appreciate about it. It's short. It's not a terribly long game. I was a little bit surprised. Although I suppose I shouldn't have been. It's probably like... I think I put maybe 7 hours into it. And I'm not doing 100%. I don't care about getting on the fucking missiles and life bars and whatever the fuck. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, baby. And I'll tell you what, I had a fucking great time. This game fucking owns. I'm gonna be playing it again at some point in the future. I honestly don't know what people could possibly complain about with this game. It's so tight, so perfect. It is exactly what it's supposed to be, you know? It's not trying for something and failing. It's doing something and it's succeeding like perfectly at what it's doing, which is creating this almost like mobile game, like fast-paced shooter type thing that also requires a bit of like first-person stuff. I really like the first-person stuff. At first, I thought it was going to be tricky because you have to swap back and forth. You have to play with the fucking Wii stick, the Wiimote. And so to enter first person, you have to, you're holding the Wiimote like you would like a game pad or something. And to swap into first person, you got to point the shit at the television. And so at first, I thought that this was going to be a fucking pain in the ass. I really did. Because it's a little bit slow. It's not slow, but it's just a weird thing to have to do. And so I was like, I don't know about this. But ended up being pretty good. And to my surprise, because really it's like you use that if you need precision aiming. But at the moment you're aiming it at the television, you can't move the character. You're locked in first person, but you can't strafe or anything. And so it's basically like a pretty piss-poor offensive position to be taking if you're, fighting the enemies in this game, which are designed to be like these sort of fucking swarmy mobile app enemies. But as the game progresses, obviously, like more and more of the enemies have these sort of... you have to hit them with missiles at a certain... your normal gun will freeze them, and then your missiles will break them, So you get used to this swapping back and forth, and most of the combat in the game is sort of constructed around this particular controller in this third-person, first-person scheme. So it goes from real fast-paced kind of thing to being able to do first-person, looking around, being a little bit more methodical like you would in a fucking Metroid Prime game. So I think for that reason, this one strikes a pretty sweet little balance there of not being like full-blown, because Prime games are like epic big novels, and this game is like it's like a little pulp fucking 100-page thriller book kind of thing, It's just short and sweet, and it has the same amount of refinement, I would say, as the Prime games, but on like a more sexy, digestible level. Because this game is fucking sexy. The whole thing, it just looks so cool. It looks so slick. And you can still look around and you can get that Metroid sort of feel, where you're in these sort of empty alien planet environments, that kind of thing. So I was hooked on it. Because you can pick it up and you can start it and you're already enjoying it. Like there's no real steep learning curve. And there's no sense of like ever being behind. which sounds a little bit ridiculous. But in the Prime games, I would hit this sense of being like, oh my god, I have so much more shit I have to do before I actually get to this place or that. You know, those games, they don't suffer for it, but recently I was like, hey, you know, I should play Prime 3 again. I love that game. It's on the Wii. You know, it's got the Wiimote thing. Fucking looks great. I thought it was better than 2. And then when I went to play it, I'm like, oh my fucking, I gotta go through all this shit. You know, the tutorial level alone in that game, the first fucking level, is like an hour and a half of the same you know, it takes so long to get started, and then it sort of repeats itself as far as like you go to a new world and then you start all over again. You know, the game is robust in the amount of shit you have to do and the amount of effort that's required to, you know, take care of that shit. Whereas this game is good for little pea-sized brain motherfuckers like me who just want to come home and have a good fucking time for once in their fucking lives. All right? I don't need every video game I play to be a fucking commitment, okay? As good as it may be, I'm not reading Moby Dick every fucking time I want to read, all right? Sometimes we want fast food, and this is what Metroid Prime does in an elegant way. It's providing you with just the best fast food ever. It's so fucking awesome. It's just an addictive, fun game that looks incredible, that still has that Metroid look, that is using some, I don't know what fucking engine it's using, but it looks like, you know, texturally like Metroid Prime 3, which is also on this system, as I said. So there's no like downgrading quality. For instance, shooting the gun looks fucking amazing. It looks like fireworks going off. You know, it has that sort of, what the fuck is that game? One of those fucking bullet games where it's just like, it just looks like fireworks going off the whole time. One of those huge bullet games where you're on like a, whatever. You people know what I'm fucking talking about. Anyway, every impact, every jump, like the sound you make when you jump, like everything is so crisp and tight, looks so cool. All the bullets look fucking sick. They've got these cool, crazy patterns, and when you connect like a power shot with an enemy, the thing blows up, you know? It just looks fucking great. It's just visually so, I mean, it's like eye candy, you know? It just fucking looks so good. And I suppose that leads to the only real complaint I have, like the only actual complaint I have, which is no cosmetic upgrades. I'm like, how fucking sick. Or even after you beat the game, you don't get like a new costume or something like you would in like a Silent Hill or whatever, Resident Evil. There's no cosmetic upgrades. I'm like, how fucking sick would Samus have looked with the big purple shoulder pads like she had in the first game? That would have looked so fucking cool in this game. But, you know, I also appreciate that they don't mess with that. You know, I think it's kind of cool that they don't do it, but I think it would have been nice if they did. Other complaints, the length is a little short, I'll say that. I think for that reason it makes me want to play it again, because, you know, I'm not necessarily playing the game to, like, as a completionist. And by that, I don't mean unlocking the shit. I mean, like, I'm not playing the game for the plot. I'm not playing the game because I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. I'm playing the game because it's fucking fun, right? You have, like, 10 minutes of, like, wandering around killing aliens, and then every fucking 10 minutes there's, like, a boss fight. And I thought that was going to be sort of ridiculous because I was like, God damn, there's a lot of boss fights in this game, but all the bosses are fun as hell. You know, they require like maybe 3 minutes of fucking figuring them out, problem solving. And then it's like a matter of like dexterity and not getting your shit rocked and this and that. So boss fights are great. The amount in the game are great. So it works that the game is like 6 hours long, because if it was longer, it might be a little bit ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking know. That's a complaint. Only other complaint really is like the final boss bit is sort of ridiculous. It's not that difficult. It's pretty fun. But there are 2 sequences in that boss fight And the game does this sometimes where it forces you to look through the first person thing and find like an area of interest in the surrounding room or whatever. And they're pretty fucking vague about it. Not even vague. There's just like, you really have to kind of crawl over every inch of the screen until, you know, the fucking game locks on to the thing you're supposed to look at. If any of you have played this game, you know what I'm talking about. It's a sort of weird little gimmicky thing that they do. I don't particularly mind it. In fact, I don't really give a fuck about it at all because it doesn't disrupt anything. But when you're in the, like, what is supposed to be this big boss fight at the end, yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous. You know, it sort of kills the flow of what is otherwise supposed to be this scripted bit that's supposed to have sort of spectacle level impact. Yeah, it disrupts it because you're then like, okay, what seriously, what the fuck am I looking for? And then you see it in the bottom corner and you're like, oh, well, that was stupid. You know, for instance, here are the two bits. So you fucking shoot this thing in the belly. Big Metroid guy is laying on the ground. You shoot his belly a couple times. And a scripted bit begins where you like grapple hook into its mouth. You turn into a ball. And in the ball form, you're supposed to lay a bomb inside of its stomach. You know, and you've got about 5 seconds to do this before, like, the stomach acid kills you. So I get into the guy's fucking stomach for the third time. I'm dropping hella bombs. And it's just not fucking working. I keep dying. I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? To the point where I had to look it up. And whoever answered this question on, like, Games Radar or whatever the fuck I was looking at actually sort of answered it in the same snarky attitude that I was looking it up with. And he's like, oh, you don't remember, or they, oh, you don't remember that you learned how to use a fucking power bomb, you know, within the first minute of the game, and then that power was restricted for the rest of the game. You don't remember that little tidbit that you learned 8 hours ago? That's weird. And I was like, okay, see, like, that was bullshit. Like, I had to do this power bomb shit that quite literally had never come up once in the game. Not one time did this little thing come up. And so for a disruption as ridiculous and like narrative stopping as that, yeah, pretty stupid. That was a pretty stupid idea of these guys. These people, this crew. And then after that, there's another scripted bit where, you know, the AI princess lady is wreaking havoc and all the bugs are attacking you. And what you're supposed to do is lock onto her in the background. And that's it. You lock onto her and that triggers the next little cutscene. All you have to do is lock on. But of course, you know, I'm like, well, I've got about 1 million alien guys shooting me at once. So I repeated it like 10 fucking times just trying to kill all these aliens, which, by the way, is impossible. You know, it's just like this ongoing purge of what? Oh God, I cannot speak this morning. This ongoing fucking swarm of nonstop aliens that kills you no matter what, because you're supposed to fucking lock on, trigger this cutscene, blah blah blah. That shit was frustrating. I also had to look that up. I'm like, what am I supposed to do right now? And they're like, well, just fucking lock onto the fucking person in the background. So I thought that bit of the ending was kind of stupid. I thought it really killed it for me. The cutscenes are cool. The story actually ends up being pretty interesting in retrospect. You know, for me, I needed to know the whole story beginning to end before I really gave a fuck about trying to break it down. Because they try to have a little I don't know. They're teaching some sort of moral fucking lesson here. There's some questions brought up about AI and emotional intelligence, what a soul is, that kind of shit. You know, obviously this is just cutscenes saying this, so it really has zero bearing on the game whatsoever. But for what it's worth, I thought the story was kind of cool. I'm sure a lot of people fucking hate it for some weird reason, just because that's what nerds do, is fixate on the weirdest shit. Yeah, if you haven't played it and you have a Wii, I really could not recommend it more. Especially if you like Metroid, but you're like, I'm not playing a fucking Prime game right now. You know, I think that this fills such a perfect little niche where I love the aesthetics of the Prime games. I love everything about them except for the 30 hours I have to sink into them. So this makes me want to play like the other sort of more snappy Metroid games that are out there, because they must be pretty good, the new ones anyway. All right, I'm fucking done. Goddamn, I'm tired.